thank you for giving your time. I'm going to show 2 or 3 clips from the documentaries that I have been involved in. Of course, I don't work on my own, I work with people. So I'm just one of the core. Ukhumbula mama?
Ngiyamkhumbula yena ngoba naye wezama ngendlela wezama ngayo. Mangabe kena into esizoyidla wezama siwesidle futhi.
Awusabi ukuthola i-AIDS wena?
Ngesaba ukuthola i-AIDS ngoba futhi nabazali bami ngababona ukuthi bashona kabuhlungu kanjani. Awukuhlungu nasenhlizweni yami.
Umama wakho akutshela ingaba yamakhondom?
Ayi. Uma ungakaze sitshela ukuthi uthini. Ukuthi uma wathe egula mina ngangiqala ukuganga. Wathe seshonile ke ngase ngiqala imikhuba nami ngoba ngazi ukuthi wayengekho umuntu ozongithethisa.
Kunomuntu It's okay. It's fine.
Kanoma ukuba wekhona wekwazi ukuthi angishaye angiqondise njengengane ngazi ukuthi into eyiphutha isuke eyiphutha akufanele ukuthi ngiyenze.
So izinwele zakho uzenza kanjani nazo? Ezinye ziphumile, ezinye aziphumanga. Uzenza bona ugundi izinwele?
Ngikazigunda lami. Zayiphumile futhi. Kodwa ngisazigunda manje.
Mina ngicabanga ukuthi i-fashion uyazi. Njengeyami phela bayathi i-fashion. I'm saddened by the fact that, yes, it's the girl child who has to actually quit school first and look after the siblings. Langston Hughes has got this great poem called A Dream Deferred, where people's dreams are actually not going to be recognized and realized. I'm meeting young girls and I ask them, what do you want to do, with your life? And a lot of them don't know. And I can't imagine a life of actually not having a dream, because I always had dreams. From when I was a kid, and my mother always encouraged my dreams. I always wanted to be this actress, and I always used to be in front of the mirror. And yeah, my mother, there isn't going to be anyone to tell you when you have your first periods that actually this is what you do, There isn't anyone to be with you on your first day of school, those little things that a lot of people with parents, take for granted. I weep. I weep for these young girls, and it's like I feel what a terrible loss for these young girls. Things are just never quite the same when you lose your mother. My journey is ending where it began, because another child is about to lose a mother. Not just one child, but 4 daughters. Sistembi is dying. No words need to be spoken. Just the silence of caring. I have been here before. Funa kube gogo.
Siyabonga baba egameni likaJesu waseNazaretha ekuseni sikuneza udumo sikuneza isibongo siyakuhlonipha siyakwesaba njengothixo baba omncane njengamanje sithatha indawo yonke siyaphuma la uNkulunkulu wethu sesibhedlela sizinakela kuwo sivikele kuwo wonke ezingozini zonke uNkulunkulu wethu sihawu sibuyela ngamalanga omlilo sembathe senkazimuli wakho sinikela nalolu hambo ukuba lube impumelelo nosuku lonke nje.
I'm back after starting this journey for the last 9 months, and I just want to thank you. I honestly want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for opening the way for us, for the completion of this project, this documentary, which has been about my journey and also about coming to terms with the HIV illness and coming to terms with my relationship with you. I am who I am today because of you, whether it was telling me to hold my head up or to look people in the face when I was greeting people. All of those little things, you know, and I can't begin to express how I miss you. I do. And I never told you when you were alive, you know. I never told you that I loved you. I never did. On a lighter note, thank you very, very much for being an incredible woman and for giving birth to this phenomenal daughter of yours. I know you always used to say to me, Xoliswa, you must learn to be modest. Well, I've tried. I've prayed very hard. That has never worked for me. Show you the other, it will be too much, you know, the other clip. But basically, I'm here to talk about what freedom means to me. And what freedom means to me is having the ability to dream. That's really what it means to me. Because I think that it always starts with a dream. You know, even if, you know, when you look at someone like Einstein, when you look at someone like Mandela, when you look at great inventions, artists, ordinary people we live with in our communities, it always starts with a dream. And I think that a lot of middle-class people take that for granted. I make documentaries about women, children, and issues around poverty and human rights. And within the context of global politics and global population, majority of human beings on this earth are living below, whether it's $2 a day, $1 a day. They don't have the ability, not so much ability, but they don't actually have the freedom to dream. You know, whether it is children who are making carpets in the north of India, or whether it is children who are panning for gold in the Congo, you know, or whether it is kids who are working in factories in Vietnam, in Thailand, and they're working 18 hours a day, you know, to make us look good and feel good. They don't have the privilege to dream. And I think for me, that's probably one of the worst tragedies. Poverty is the worst tragedy, but I think that when you don't have the freedom to use your mind, because it all begins within the mind, you know, that for me is catastrophic. Zimbabwe's Forgotten Children was made underground we finished it in 2010. And I had no idea what kind of film I wanted, but I knew I had access into the country. So they're colleagues of mine I work with in England. So the BBC basically said, look, just go and find, you know, what you can find. And the irony of it is that we never thought we were going to make a film about education, because actually Mugabe's greatest legacy on the continent and in the world actually, at a certain point in time, it was Mugabe and Fidel Castro who were leading in the education stakes, apart from the Scandinavian countries. And so it was very interesting that the characters that we ended up with were characters that were battling with the issue of actually going to school. So that's how that documentary was made. And I just wanted to show Shouting Silent because it was my very first independent film in 1999 when South Africa, when Thabo Mbeki was very, very denialist about HIV. And it was a very, very difficult film to make because it was just that period where I was witnessing this genocide that was happening and people didn't know what was going on. When I went to KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and all of that, people in this country had no idea what this HIV/AIDS was. And we had a president who was intellectualizing HIV/AIDS, yet our population, as we all know, at that time, it's improved, was a population where a lot of people were not educated, but thanks to our constitution, the Treatment Action Campaign, you know, took that on and made antiretrovirals available to people. So it was a very tough time because it was a time which pitted sister against brother, mother against blacks against whites. It was just a very, very difficult time in the history of our country. And what we witnessed during that time was really, really horrendous. And the reason why I chose this clip was to remind us of where we are coming from as South Africans, as privileged South Africans in this room, that there are people who've worked very hard to get some of those gains, but also at the same time, we mustn't relax because the HSRC, the Human Rights Resources Council, have just come up with a report about 6 weeks ago where HIV/AIDS is actually now on the increase. I don't know if people are aware of that. And so, but my interest mainly is about children because I feel that we are fast living in a world globally where poor people will never be able to participate in the democratic space that has been created by people before us. So we will have a churning out of the leaders, whether it is the Bushes, whether it's, you know, because people are privileged, they go to school, and we are going to have the same type of leadership globally because poor people will not be able to realize their dreams, will not be able to go to school, will not be able to have the same opportunities. And as a result, they will never be able to fully participate
in whatever democracy we are talking about. It doesn't matter whether it's in America, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and I think that it's something that we shouldn't allow. It's something that us as people with access to money, access to resources, but it's not just about money, access to resources, we cannot allow a situation whereby a child in Limpopo dies in a toilet because the municipality has been unable to provide safe toilets for people in that area. We cannot have a situation whereby children in South Africa, with all the wealth and the resources that we have, their reading ability alone from a certain age is worse than other children in the world. We can't. We are coming from greatness. We've achieved greatness. But for as long as we leave poor children behind, because if we harness that group of people, you will have 1 million dreams, 1 million inventions, 1 million everything that will actually make South Africa and the world great. And that is why I do this kind of work, because I think it's important to take people out of their comfort zones, to realize how privileged we are, but that privilege comes with responsibility. It's important for you to make sure, is your domestic worker's child getting a good education? Do you want that child to be a domestic worker? Do you want that child to be a gardener? Why shouldn't your domestic worker's child be a doctor? Why should you sit and say that I am paying tax, it's enough? Just your domestic worker. Do you know where she lives? Do you know the schools that her children are going to? Are you aware of the child's reading capability? And I think that we can all start somewhere. We can start there. We don't have to do, I'm trying to say we can do something to make sure that we don't leave our people behind. And the more young people who are empowered, whether they are poor, to dream a stronger democracy and a stronger world we will have. That's why I do what I do.
What's your dream?
What is my dream? My dream has always been to change the world through images. That's all. Zimbabwe's Forgotten Children, when it came out in England, the first week it had 11,000 Facebook friends. A fund was set up. You can go on zimbabweschildren.org, zimbabweschildren.org. All the children in the film, Orbit was one of the brightest kids in that film, is finishing his A-levels in Zimbabwe at former Robert Mugabe's secondary school, top-notch school. Was Robert Mugabe puts resources into his school. That little girl, we found a place for her, the one who's sitting with her sister, little sister Tino. She's at the SOS villages and we pay money. She's HIV positive and we pay for the ARVs. The other girl who was just talking about what a terrible life she will have if she doesn't go to school. We found, she's got a twin. We found a house mother in process of buying them a house because people donated a lot of money. If you go on, you will see where your money goes. We have a driver who goes every 3 times a year to go and check on the needs of the children, school. That school that you just saw, the money from the film, has improved the school, built a borehole, people have got a garden, you know. The first documentary that I won a BAFTA for, called Orphans of Nkandla, that was in 2005. I don't know if you know Richard Curtis, the guy who started Make Poverty History. He used a clip of that documentary to raise money for Make Poverty History, for charities globally. I was invited by Elton John to the Elton John ball, where he used a clip of the film to do his auction. For 2 years, Elton John raised about £7 million. He wanted to bring the money here to do a pilot project for antiretroviral drugs for children. Thabo Mbeki was not interested, and the money went to Kenya. And so it's you know, I'm just a documentary filmmaker. But another thing that I also stress to people is that you must always examine your intention as to why you do what you do. If you think you're going to do this and be opportunistic and want to create a name for yourself, and so it's not going to happen. It's just not going to fly. A documentary is a process, it's your baby. You allow it to go in whatever direction it goes. And you just pray for the best. And then it goes out into the world, it does what it has to do. So, I'm not rich by any means. I just moved out of Yeovil last year. I couldn't sell my flat for 2 years. You know, I just live above Orange Grove. My car is 16 years old. That's not the point. The point is, are you doing nice work? That's the point. Are you doing nice work? Are you doing work that changes the lives of people? That's all. Whatever happens tomorrow, happens tomorrow. You know, and that's why I love what I do. So there's so much for us to do, money or no money. And I love talking, I can talk forever. So please, this is a conversation. This is not about me talking. I'm feeling very emotional. I don't know when last I saw that. The other, clip I was going to show you, it's South Africa's Lost Girls, but I won't, because it looks at the rape that goes on in South Africa. Young girls, boys, 1 in 3 children are being raped. We went to Port Elizabeth and we follow that. We look at a failing justice system that doesn't protect poor people. And and basically service delivery. And how we all think that, if something happens to you, go for counseling, go to Childline. Making this documentary shocked me. Childline doesn't have money. Childline cannot cope with what is happening. Social services in this country, when children are raped or being abused, there are no safe houses because they don't have places. And you will be surprised that there is no bloody Ubuntu, because forget about that. We are talking about issues of pennies, of cents, dollars, resources. To say that if you were to pass on, your brother can look after your children. But it doesn't happen anymore in our communities because people can't even feed themselves. People are starving in this country. I don't know if you know that. People are hungry, are dying hungry in this country. So, and so that was, South Africa's Lost Girls, where we follow girls over a period of 1 year and what happens in those communities. I get into a lot of shit with the work that I do because comfortable people don't want to see that. We are so used to popular culture, mainstream media, and I'm always being accused of, as a black person, of taking out our dirty linen in public. I must tell a good story. There are good stories to tell, but that's not my calling. My calling is to unearth some of the travesties and the tragedies that are happening in our world and in our communities.
say thank you for that, and also I love how openly emotional you are, because I'm also very passionate about women's rights, and I think as women, we're consistently being told not to be emotional. Do you think that with you crying or crying in your documentary, do you think it affects how people take your work?
I've been accused of being manipulative by some people, but actually,
because we're told not to cry.
No, sweetheart, I really don't give a shit, to be quite honest. You know what I mean? I do that, that's what I do, that's how I'm feeling. Sometimes I'm interviewing a child, that the child is crying, I'm crying. That's just how it is. I am. I'm very emotional as a person, but even when I make love, I cry. So, I'm trying to say, you know, that's just the person I am. And I'm in that space where I really, really feel so, I am so blessed. I am so divinely blessed that whatever I do turns into magic. But it's because that power is coming from somewhere. So I allow myself to be in that moment.
Same as her. Yes, I think you crying in the video forces the viewer to see the reality of it, because if the person behind the scenes is getting so emotional about this, it's real. But I find it interesting that you're speaking to us, that most of us are probably middle, even some probably upper class. And there's a huge division in this country between educated middle, upper class, and poor. And the division is visual, and the division is in our lives. You can easily create quite a clear bubble around your world and not really interact. So having the domestic work is probably the one way that middle and upper class are forced to see the lower class, and that's not even the that's the lower class that is working. And I just consciously, intentionally moved to an area that isn't upper middle class, because I'm tired of the bubble. And when you're living in that world, you see another side, and this is all true, and the desolation, but you see the side that the closed bubble also isn't seeing, and that's the community, the laughter, the music. Music from all angles, different types of music. And the amount of kids you'll see in a park that is full of mess, 40, 50 kids playing. And my point of my babble is that what worries me, what really concerns me, is there's a very clear division happening in South Africa of the us and the them. And the them need us. The them are poor, the them have nothing, and we have everything. And I think it's actually not true. The them have something that we are lacking in our wealthy suburbia. And it's a compromise that I think both parties will benefit from. And I would love, and I challenge you as a documentary I haven't seen any visual representation of that, of what is going on in those communities and I don't know if it's just South Africa, that the wealthy and the middle class are lacking in their lives, and those are succeeding in their lives. You know, it's not just shame and yay.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you, because I've also done documentaries for very wealthy people. I used to be in the feature film industry, so I've worked for multi-millionaires before I became a documentary filmmaker, and we were chatting about that. And them and their money protecting them. Not all of them, but some of them, there is a certain lack of humility. There's a certain lack of just smelling the roses. There's a certain lack of just having ordinary, normal relationships. But within that, I have seen laughter when I go to these places. I have seen generosity beyond, you know, but actually at the same time, I'm also not going to romanticize poverty. It is ugly, it is horrible, but the worst thing that it does, it strips away at people's human dignity. And in the South African Constitution, there is a provision that everyone is supposed to be respected and have human dignity. And I gave the example of the toilet saga that happened in Mpumalanga. How this government, how the municipality can build toilets for people and not have toilets that are covered and expect people to just go there in the open and use it. Where is the human dignity in that? That is a violation of our constitution. That, by the way, was the biggest global exercise anywhere in the world, because the South African Constitution is the only constitution that makes provision for issues of social rights. The right to food sovereignty, the right to a roof over your head, and the right to a quality education. Other constitutions don't allow for that. So why are we not fighting? Because you know what? South African government is not for lack of money. It is not for lack of money, and they will tell you that. It is actually not giving our people decent services. On the point that you're talking about, I mean, like, yeah, I do something totally different. And you are so right. But you see, one of the things as well, about myself, I'm a Google. I love French, but apart from all the stuff that I do, I love French champagne. I wear Chanel number 5. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I know Chanel number 5 maybe can take 2 kids to school for a year. But I didn't kill Jesus Christ. Do you know what I'm trying to say? There are certain things about myself that I will do and I will not apologize for. I'm not into gratuitous, conspicuous consumerism. But at the same time, the point I'm trying to make is that I am conscious of what I do. I'm conscious of wanting to create a better world. But you know what, honey? I also like nice things, and I'm fine with that. And to be quite honest with you, if I had more money, I would live in Hyde Park. And I wouldn't apologize for that. But what am I doing with my life that makes a difference? Fortunately, I've never chased after money. So I've never been bothered what dress I have, because I love what I do so much, and I know that I'm such a wealthy person myself. In spirit and otherwise, I am really, really, really rich, and I know that. So I applaud that. Do you know what I mean? What you are saying, because I think that it's a conscious decision that you've made, and if you want to raise children, it's definitely a better environment in terms of a child being immersed in the reality of this country. Because I get shocked at how, especially white people in this country 20 years later, are living in a bubble. I was invited to a wedding, a white wedding. I was the only black person there. And I thought to myself, but this is South Africa. Don't you have other black associates? Don't you have other black friends? It's ridiculous. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And we come across that all the time. My child goes to a private school. There are 3 black kids in the classroom of 23. And this is South Africa 2014. It's unacceptable. You are asking me, then why am I sending my child to that school? Well, it's a Zimbabwean thing, darling. I always tell my friends that if you grew up in Zimbabwe, you went to school in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwean people will spend their last dime giving their children the best education. The same thing with other peoples. You know what I'm trying to say? So, that's a Zimbabwean thing. I mean, there's a woman, in fact, in Yeoville who sells vegetables, who sits in the corner, sells vegetables, and she came here illegally. She's renting, there are 3 people who are renting a room, and she's one of them. She sells vegetables and she's putting her son through Wits Medical School. And the child now, I think, is about maybe 50 years. You know what I'm trying to say? And that's such a Zim thing. So, but no, getting back to what we're talking about. It's also important. I mean, I see that with these very rich white moms at my daughter's schools, where it's important for them to also come out of their shell. It's important for them to also, let your child go for a weekend, man, with the house, whoever, if she is living in Shoshanguve, the woman who's cleaning your house. Let your child go and spend a weekend with her and her grandchildren and everyone. Because it is important for our children. We need to stop, because this country is very divided. We really, really need to make a conscious effort to immerse our children in what is happening around us. And I find that there is an unwillingness. Even the very rich blacks as well now, you know what I mean? I was living in Yeovil, I don't want to bring their kids driving into Yeovil, you know what I mean? I'm like, what? Where do you get that from? You know what I mean? You grew up in the township, what are you talking about? But there is also that is also happening, you know what I mean, with the rich black people, where issues of poverty and all of that, the dynamics are also being skewed. And I really think we are doing our children a disservice.